Hello and welcome back to another video. In this one, it's just me and Marcus, and we'll be talking everything to do with the January transfer window because there's not much time left. Some teams have been busy, others, such as my team, have not been too busy. First of all, Marcus, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Carl. I'm good.
That's okay, mate. We'll get started probably with the biggest story of the window so far. And that is John Duran to Al Nassr, which was confirmed yesterday by Fabrizio Romano. It was 77 million euros plus add-ons. So I think 77 million euros works out to just over 64 million pounds. I want to get your opinion on this. Do you think that he's kind of sold his soul a little bit in that sense?
In a way, he has, because you get the comments online and people say, "Oh, you're on good money, Premier League footballer." Yeah, they are, but they're getting taxed. What you got to consider out there in Saudi Arabia, I don't think they get taxed for their salary. No. So the difference between, I don't know how much he was on at Villa. I've seen numbers like 70, 80,000, whether that's right or not, I don't know. But when you compare it to 300,000 tax-free, you could say he's selling his soul, which, yeah, you're losing a bit of competitiveness because you've seen Ivan Toney go over there. And when you see clips online of some of the goals he's scoring against some of the defences and goalkeepers, you're thinking, what is this level like? You're such a higher level than this. But it's, at the end of the day, like, some footballers, they don't have anything past their retirement age of like mid-30s, late 30s. So they want to be setting up their future for their kids, their grandkids. So yeah. From the money side of it, I do quite respect it, to be honest. And what's to say that if he doesn't ball out over there and really, up his game, then he could move back to Europe later on. There's nothing denying that. So I respect the move, to be honest, but I can see a lot of people ain't happy with it online.
Yeah, so yeah, me personally, I mean, the way I see it, with obviously all of the Ollie Watkins rumours, which is what we'll touch on next. From my point of view, I see it as a case of that if he'd have just held out for a little bit longer, Villa might have been willing to let Watkins leave, and then he would have become the main man at Villa, and he would he's only 21 years old. I think some people forget that purely just of A, he does not look 21 years old, and B, how well he's playing. He's averaging 4 shots per 90, like 1 goal per game, but based off of, because a lot of the time he's coming off of the bench. 54% of his aerials winning, so he's a menace inside the box. He's a goal scoring demon. I just do think that if he'd have held out for a little bit longer, like literally like a day or two, they could have let Watkins go, who's obviously now 29. It's not old at all. Yeah. I think some of the things I have seen online, I think like Football Manager and Career Mode has like warped people's minds of that 29 is an old age for a footballer. When realistically that's when they should be at the peak of their powers or coming into the peak of their powers. But I think 60, 70 million for whatever Arsenal were bidding, you'd know more than me. We'll touch on it in a second. I think they'd more than likely take that, and that would then leave him to be the main man. And who's to then say that if he carries on with his performances, he could be earning that money in a few years' time? If Villa are a big team, big club, no disrespect to them, but I mean, is in one of the super giants for wages, such as your Real Madrids, your Barcelonas, your Bayern Munichs, or even Man United. It might be a downgrade, like footballing performance-wise, but the wages that they can offer are a lot bigger than what Villa can offer. So I don't know. I don't think it sits right with me, purely because of how young he is. I could understand it if he was maybe in his like early 30s, mid 30s, and he just wanted one last payday. But I don't know.
It's crazy the difference I think a week can make, because I think I've seen reports Arsenal bidded on, I want to say Monday for Watkins, whether that's right or not, I don't know the exact day, but if you go back half a week, the situation could have been so different, because they're both very good strikers in their own ways. They're two they're too good of individual players to be one gets subbed, which is mainly Watkins starting and then gets subbed and then Duran comes on. They're too good to be doing that. So the difference, the game is like you said, Duran, 21 years old. He could have been the face of Aston Villa if he wanted to. He's going to leave there with a good legacy is quite a strong word for how long he's been there, but he's going to leave there.
Reputation.
Yeah, reputation-wise, he's going to leave there quite well. He scored a banger against Everton, if I remember right, the famous chip against Manuel Neuer against Bayern. You know, he's not going to be frowned upon, and obviously Villa are getting a good bit of money out of it. But future-wise for Aston Villa, I feel like the same sort of money is being offered for Watkins, who's 8-9 years older, whatever. Logically wise going forward in the future, you'd say that they should keep on to Duran and then get that money for Watkins and cash in, because who knows in 2-3 years' time where, you know, aging a bit, 32, 33 Watkins, Duran's, you know, still yet to come into his prime, which is scary, to be honest. So I think football could have been so different. It could have changed so easily for Aston Villa. And I don't think the fans are too annoyed with Duran leaving, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on Ollie Watkins, you know, being 28, 29, kind of the next couple of years will be quite interesting to see whether he carries on with his goal scoring form, or if it falls off a cliff, basically. And it's, you know, this season he's got 10 goals and 5 assists in the league. Last season was 19 goals and 13 assists. Would you have wanted him at Arsenal if the bid was accepted and Duran stayed at Villa? And like you were in a big pole position to sign Ollie Watkins, and he accepted because he's an Arsenal fan, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he said in an interview, I think 4 years back, that his dream is to play for Arsenal. This is when he was playing at Brentford, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and would you take him? Because I feel like that's maybe what Arsenal need, like that ruthless goal scorer.
I would take him. I mean, I don't really think I'm in a position, or any Arsenal fan is in a position right now, especially to say you're not going to take a striker with his sort of stats. I think he got the most contributions in the league, whether that was last season or the season before, like 32, I want to say 32 goals and assists combined. Yeah. Obviously, this season he's done well, like you said, with 15 goals and assists. I think you'd be silly not to take him, because as well, with the amount of assists he's got, with Mikel Arteta, I feel like as much as we want that gunman striker who's going to score loads of goals, like your Aubameyang, who we used to have, but then obviously got exiled out of the squad, Mikel Arteta is all about bringing others into play, bringing the wingers into play. So even though Kai Havertz was signed as a midfielder, now he's a striker. Often in the build-up, you get quite frustrated. When I watch games with him, I get frustrated because you want him to take the man on, but instead he's holding it up, waiting for others to bring into play, which is sometimes, as fans, we get a bit impatient and we don't really see that side of things, because if he turns his back, he could go at a 2-1 on defenders, but he just waits, holds it up. And Watkins will have a lot more of that hold-up play as well, with his assists provided. I would take him, to be honest. He scored against us a couple of times, could have scored more goals against us. I would definitely take him. I mean, as well, like some fans have said 60 mil is a lot of money, and they bring his age into play, but I don't know what age Aubameyang was when we signed him, but I want to say he's around a similar age when we signed him as to what Watkins is now. So the experience he has as well, Brentford, Aston Villa, even the lower leagues of Exeter, and you know, it always helps when they say they support the club. Mainly it's French players nowadays who typically say in interviews, "Oh yeah, I watched Arsenal growing up, Thierry Henry," but then you've got Ollie Watkins 4 years ago saying it is a dream to play for Arsenal. I would take him at Arsenal in a heartbeat, but obviously now it massively complicates it because you've got Duran who's set to leave, so you don't see that move happening.
Yeah, I think Ben Jacobs, the journalist, he said that the door now is completely shut for Watkins to be going, which is as expected, really, because if they lost both their strikers, they would be in big trouble. Yes, they'd have made a lot of money, but you know, to lose two quality players like that, especially your main talisman in Watkins and then the super sub in Duran, it would definitely derail their season. And it's not this isn't transfer related actually, but I want to ask you about you were talking about Kai Havertz in your when you were talking just then. I saw a statistic saying that he covers around 12 kilometers a game or something like that.
Yeah,
and it's one of them of maybe he's kind of getting ran into the ground a tiny bit, and where do you think going forward, if you were to sign a striker in the summer, I mean, like for example, Gyökeres or Sesko, you know, an out and out striker, who could you'd look to be your main like goal outlet. Where would Kai Havertz fall into that? Would he simply be a squad player, or would you be starting him?
That's elsewhere? The thing with the amount of money you spent on him. It's crazy to say it, but I think he would be a squad player, because you said that stat there about 12 kilometers a game or whatever. He has been running to the ground. I think I seen a Twitter post which Leah replied to, so I replied to it as well. The only player I think in the Prem who's covered more distance this season is Bruno Guimaraes, I think, for Newcastle. So it shows the sort of lengths he's been put to. He's normally always available for us. I'd probably just jinx that saying that now. But we've only got one striker. Obviously, Gabriel Jesus, ACL injury out. So there's a lot of reliance on him. So another striker is needed. It's crazy to have a 65 million player possibly on the bench, but as much as Mikel Arteta does like it as well, he's very keen on his versatility. Some of the links we've had to players, whether we are to sign them or not, like the likes of Mateus Cunha, Tel, etc., they can play across the line. And I think even though Kai Havertz, obviously his positions has been in the 10 striker role for us, even left back for Germany, he could probably play on the wing. I think he would be a squad player, because you get Saka coming back into the squad. That's just non-negotiable. He starts. Gyökeres or Sesko or whoever we sign, they should be the striker, because they'll be the ones to get us that, well, hopefully 20 plus goals a season. And then the left side's a bit of a tricky one, because you've got Trossard and Martinelli, and none of them are either really firing this season. Trossard has been delivering more recently, but then Martinelli's also been putting some good crosses in. So he could be, it's crazy to say, but he could just be cover for players, whether that's striker, the right wing, Martin Odegaard. I wouldn't be against it. I don't see him starting if we sign a big striker, which will probably be in the summer. I don't see him starting.
You touched on Mathis Tel, which is what I really want to speak about next, because I think there's so much to talk about with him. Because today, Fabrizio Romano confirmed that Spurs and Bayern have reached a verbal agreement for 60 million euros for the player. The club are wanting to sign him permanently rather than just a loan, which obviously would favour Bayern, I reckon, and as well with the deals and the relationships with the club between for the Harry Kane deal and the Eric Dyer deal. The relationship between the two clubs is seen to be positive. And apparently, a lot of this money that we'd be spending on Tel is kind of make-up money for and like add-ons for the Harry Kane deal. So like they kind of cancel each other out almost. So we're not directly paying them money, but they're not giving us the money for Harry Kane. If that makes sense, And this season he's played just 14 games and registered 1 goal contribution across the entire year. He's good. He's good. Like taking on his man, 2.57 take-ons completed, which ranks him in the top 14% of wingers and attacking midfielders, and he's in the top 1% for aerial duels. Obviously, plenty of clubs interested in him. You've got Villa, United, Chelsea. You said Arsenal as well. Spurs are involved. I'll quickly come to you. For the fee that they're wanting, 60 million. Is that something that you think that Arsenal should stay away from? Are you?
I think there's other areas.
Kind of looking for a more established.
Yeah, I mean, established wise, I think as well, not even just Arsenal, Ray, but even Spurs. He's 19 years old, isn't he? I think you could get I think Spurs fans often say they're fed up recently of signing. Well, Bergvall and Gray have been some of their best players, but I think they want a bit more experience in the squad now. So if they are to then go and sign a 19-year-old, obviously you're going to be happy with signing him because of your injury list, all that sort of stuff, and he could be, a future star, so to speak. But I feel like you need more experienced players. We definitely need a winger, I think, but that's where if Ethan Nwaneri steps up, which last night scored a great goal, he does seem to fill in that gap. Nobody can really fill in the gap as good as Saka, obviously, but seems to deputise quite well. Similar traits, so to speak, cutting in on the left, scoring goals. I think Spurs would want a more experienced player, to be honest, because then if he does not perform well, which he might possibly do, I don't want to speak bad on him, but he might possibly do, because them goal contributions, that they're not much, but when you've got players like Sane, Elise, Gnabry ahead of you, you're going to struggle to get in the squad, aren't you? So I think if I was a Spurs fan, I'd take it, but I wouldn't be surprised if you start hearing shouts from your fans saying, well, we should have got a more experienced player. What's up with signing all these young kids? You're relying too much on them, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree, and as well, like you said, him struggling to get chances down the wing as well. Obviously, he can play striker too, but then it's you've got to come up against Harry Kane, who's probably for the last 2 seasons or this season and last season probably been the most informed striker on the planet. So he's fighting a losing battle pretty much. No matter how hard he tries, you're not going to bench someone like Kane at the moment. And I think as well, it's an interesting one with Spurs, because we've been quite notorious under Daniel Levy's ownership and ENIC. We've been notorious for consistently taking the cheaper option and saying that we have to work on a budget almost. When I think the majority of the fans, and also fans outside of our fan base, can tell you that is a complete scam. Like, we are not working on a budget. We are one of the most stable clubs in sport in general, let alone just football. Like, in sport in general, we have some of the best turnovers from match days, and our finances are brilliant. It's from a business side of things, the club is in such an amazing place. However, football side of things, we do consistently take the low ball offers. So I think this transfer could either be brilliant for Levy or extremely bad for him. There will be no in between, because I think Tell either accepts to join us, which I think if he has a brain, he would not choose Chelsea, purely because I think that he stated that he wants to leave Bayern because he's not getting enough game time and he wants more game time. Why you would then go to Chelsea, where their most stacked position is probably wingers and like forward players, I don't know why you would go there. I think Spurs-wise, with the state of our squad at the moment, he will be playing consistently, whether it's starting in Europe or even Prem games at this point. I think he'll be playing a lot more. He's on 80 grand a week at the moment, which, to be fair, if you compare that to our other players, like their wages, it's not actually that bad. It doesn't break our wage structure. I'm guessing he probably would want an increased wage, but even if it is up to 100 grand a week, it wouldn't be a break the bank signing. But I think this could go quite badly for Levy if Tell was to turn around and say that he didn't want to join, because then Levy has kind of shown his hand to the rest of the fan base of that, well, you've got 60 million. You were prepared to pay that 60 million. So don't lowball it now. He's rejected. Go out for another player for 60 million, maybe Kubo or Nico Williams or something. Like, I think that's been the excuse with some of our, like, with him and some of our managers in the past. Jose Mourinho wanted Bruno Fernandes when he was at Sporting. He got Gedson Fernandes. He wanted Jose wanted Skriniar when he was at Inter Milan. Instead, he got Joe Rodon, who hardly played for us, and he's at Leeds now, correct? Or is he still at Leeds? Yeah,
I think so.
He is. Yeah, he was involved in a in a deal when we got Archie Gray. We paid 30 million plus Joe Rodon.
Yeah.
So it would have been 40 million, but they paid 10 million for Joe Rodon, so it kind of works out us paying 30 million. But I think if this doesn't go to plan, which I can see it probably won't do, purely because I don't really see why if he looks at the league position and not the context behind Spurs at the moment, he will not want to join us. He'll see that we're in 16th and been struggling, and he will not want to join us. If he looks at the context behind things and maybe buys into the project a little bit of that, it's a young squad. We're in a bit of a rough patch with injuries, and we're going through a project to rebuild, then he might be interested. Who knows? But it could go badly for Levy if he then doesn't, splash the cash on another player if Tell does reject the offer that we've given him. But that's just me. I don't know if you think, from an outsider's point of view.
I think, similar to any chairman, when you put a big bid in, especially, you're showing your intention that you're willing to get a player in that position. When like Arsenal bid loads on Caicedo, you're thinking, well, if it's been rejected, you're going to go and get another player sort of thing. So that's what Levy's done there. And even when your players are back fit, like your wingers, strikers, all that sort of stuff, I still think Tell could get in over those players, because as much as like players like, let's say, Son and Brennan Johnson are quite, regarded, I'd say, well by most Spurs fans, I don't think they've been performing that well. I don't know too much on Johnson, to be fair, but I mean, maybe the price tag hasn't helped with expectation around him. He's not the price tag, I think, which is warranted, which he paid. But, I think your fans are starting to see Son's on the decline. You got players like Richarlison who you're going to struggle to keep fit, that. So I think Levy putting a bid in of 60 million, if it does get rejected and then you come out of the transfer window not signing that attacking player, your fans are going to be very fuming, because you could have a window where you don't put any bids in for, I know you signed the keeper, but like attacking wise, you can have a window where you haven't put any bids in for any players, and you're like, okay, well, he just doesn't care then, sort of thing, which maybe that is worse in a sense because he's just not bothered. But when you see that there's intention and he knows that that's an area which you need covering, I mean, 50, 60 million bids, there's a lot of money for Levy to be forking out. But like you said, I think you're one of the most sustainable clubs in the world. Obviously, the stadium you've got, the revenue, the profits you get through on match day. I think if he was to get rejected, there's no reason why you can't go out and put other bids in for other wingers. But obviously, we're cutting it close for time now, aren't we? Like, it's literally tomorrow, I think, is the deadline day. So
I believe so. Yeah. It's, you said about sustainability. I can't remember which article it was. I believe it might have been The Athletic, which said that we could spend 180 million this window and still be within FFP.
Wow. That is crazy.
Still be fine with FFP, and it does go to show the money is there. I don't know how the owners think that they're getting away with it, with this whole facade of like that they don't have money or they're having to work on a budget. They are extremely wealthy owners. Some of the wealthiest sports owners in the world. But yeah, I mean, Tell, he, like I said, with 2.57 successful take-ons per 90, and like that ranking him in the top 14% in the Bundesliga, it does seem that like the transfers that we're going for now are kind of aligning with the philosophy that Ange wants to play. It didn't really make sense why we signed Brennan, purely because in the right system, and at times he has shown that he can be a great player. He's positioning at the back post, where the majority of his goals have actually came from, where either Son or Werner or whoever's out on the wing has drilled it along the face of the goal, and he's been at the back post to just tap it in. Yeah. He's got great intelligence positioning wise, but I just don't know if he suits being a touchline winger. He was never known for being a 1v1 specialist. like when he was at Forest, it was way more of like an inside forward or maybe even as a striker at times, where you drift inside as opposed to having to hold width. And I think that's the same with Son. To be fair, a lot of the managers that he has worked under, obviously Pochettino was an exception because he was in a front three, and he was a lot younger. But Conte and Jose, they often deployed him as the player who would play just off of the left of Kane. He would not be holding width very often because we'd have wing backs. We'd be playing a back five, and so he was able to play as well as he did because he was central to goal rather than having to hold width and beat his man. Because you never really saw Son as a 1v1 specialist. He just wasn't that kind of winger. He wasn't like your Saint Maximins at the time, or your Eden Hazard, for example, like where he was like a creative player out wide who could dazzle his way past the fullback with like a bit of skill or acceleration. Son just wasn't that guy, which is why as well I was confused about our links with the next person we're going to talk about, and that was at the start of the window. We were rumoured to be interested in Marcus Rashford, who is still at Man United. I want to hear your thoughts on that. Why do you think he's still at United? Like, what's going on there, do you think?
Well, the teams and stuff, whichever teams are interested in, when you look at from their outside point of view and not from inside Manchester United, you're looking at and you're saying, you've seen there's attitude problems, there's so much media talk, the manager kind of speaks, I wouldn't say bad, but he hasn't said great comments about him. And I think the wage is a massive thing you've got to take into consideration here, because even if it's a loan, I don't know what his contract situation is, how many years he's got left, but if you even a loan, you're going to have to half the wages or whatever you're going to have to do, because if you buy him, he's not going to want to take. He might take a pay cut, but it won't be a big pay cut. And I think he's on a lot of money at Manchester United. So any club who wants to, their wage books to look quite nice and be a calculated decision, because you could look back at it and say some of Marcus Rashford's performances at Manchester United have been very good, but those seem like they're behind him. But that could just be the environment he's in, because he has got a lot of stick from not just Manchester United fans, football fans in general. So a new environment could be really good for him. But like you said, would Spurs be willing to put that sort of bid in or break their kind of wage structure for him? I mean, you've got links to, I think it was AC Milan, but I don't know how true that is. I see Barcelona today. Yeah. But some of these lists of these clubs, I'm thinking, would they want to take that risk? Because you got teams like Barcelona who are going to be in the latter stages of the Champions League, competing for La Liga. Milan are up there in the Serie A. Would they want to take a risk on somebody who's barely played football recently? I know I wouldn't, but it's more of I think a lower team might want to take a risk on it. But you're talking, this has been a saga for a while now, and we got to the second to last day. I think he's going to stay put, but I'd be very surprised if there's a move in the end. I would.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view as well, like obviously I think every lad or girl who watches football growing up, they dream of playing for their, like, in their early years, they dream of playing for the club that they support or the academy they came through. We have to be very careful with situations like this, because we never really know what's going on in personal lives. We've seen it with Dele Alli before, where everyone was saying, "Oh, it's an attitude problem. It's got to his head." The fame and the money has got to his head. He thinks he's became arrogant, and then he comes out with a really upsetting kind of interview with Gary Neville talking about his mental illnesses and the things that he went through. So we have to be really careful with things like that with Marcus Rashford and other just players in general. To be fair, like you never really know what's going on behind the the front of them being this superstar earning all of this money. But without all of that, I I don't know why he'd want to leave United or leave United. I can understand maybe wanting a change, but leaving United in the way that he currently is, because if that's your boyhood club and you've given your entire life to, surely you would want to, like, your legacy that you leave to be one that is like, where, okay, it didn't work out for him in the end. However, he still gave it all in training. When he was called upon, he gave maximum effort. And I suppose if a player is wanting to leave, but they're doing that, that's all you can ask of them. Like, that's all you can really ask of them, just to be a professional and do your job. Like, you wouldn't in like someone's normal 9 to 5, if you knew that you were leaving, you wouldn't just kind of sack it off for the next couple of weeks. You would still probably remain professional within the environment, because then what kind of opinion does that give other clubs that are after him? Like, oh, he's not getting his way, and so he's training poorly. And Amorim himself has came out and said this, that he is not training to the standard that is expected of him. And he I think he said a quote of something along the lines of that he'd have the goalie coach. He'd have the goalie coach in before having a player in that wasn't showing the correct. Exactly. For a manager to be coming out like this, and I think as well, maybe Ten Hag might have touched on similar issues like that with Rashford. I just don't really know what he's playing at. Obviously, we'll never know.
I don't know whether it's like I don't know if ego is the right word, but I'm better than you sort of thing, because you see clips in the games, and obviously clips sometimes take a bit out of context, but I think I've seen too many clips where you've got the team who are coming at Manchester United, and Rashford doesn't even bother to put a tackle in, or even just shield and guard them from passing through the lines. He just lets them go past. And I've seen a few too many clips of that, and obviously Manchester United fans, when they've seen that, will not be happy. And that sort of stuff for Rashford, that will leave a mark on you. If you wanted to play for Manchester United ever since you were a kid, which you would have, and then you're leaving on these sort of grounds, it's going to leave a sour taste in your mouth when you look back at your career in the future, because you would have wanted it to end better, because then whenever somebody brings up Manchester United in a conversation to him in the future, he might have fond memories at the start, but how he will be remembered, like you said, legacy-wise, it's not going to be a good look. And I wouldn't be too surprised if Manchester United fans just aren't bothered when he leaves, because that's the sort of effort which he hasn't given to them in games when he has played recently. Well, he hasn't really played recently, but in the recent games he has played, he hasn't put that effort in. You've got, obviously, like you said, the coach saying them sort of comments. I wouldn't be too annoyed as a Manchester United fan seeing him leave, but you would just wonder where has it gone wrong, because it all looked so good for him from that debut in the European competitions to scoring a brace against Arsenal. You kind of wonder where has it actually gone wrong there.
I mean, even as late as 2022-23 season, he looked like he was on fire again. He was having a great season. I think there was even people saying that he should be within the voting for Ballon d'Or and stuff like that. It's like he had a great season, and then just since then has just looked half the player that he was. But like I said, the way that he's kind of treating training at the moment is quite obvious. For example, with Dele Alli, a lot of the poor trainer thing came from at the end of Jose's tenure, when Jose's been quite well known to throw players under the bus when things aren't going too well. In fact, I think he might have been one. He might have actually started to throw Rashford under the bus at one point. It was Pogba, Shaw, and was it Rashford as well?
It might have been, when he was at United,
Yeah, so he's quite well documented for throwing players under the bus, but a lot of the stuff about Dele being a bad trainer was media speculation, whereas Amorim has came out in press conferences and openly stated that he is a bad trainer or that he's not giving the maximum effort. And if a manager is coming out and saying that, what tone does that set for the rest of the clubs viewing it, thinking, well, we were interested in this lad, but now on second thoughts, we don't want a player that just thinks that they can rock up, do whatever they like, earn a wage, and then give mediocre performances because they're not training well. I think he's kind of shot himself in the foot pretty much, trying to not force his way out, but kind of make it very well known that he wants to leave.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my opinion, really. I'd like to touch very quickly on Aston Villa. Today they have began talks with PSG, open talks with PSG over Marco Asensio. Now, obviously, neither of us really watched the French league.
Yeah.
We never really watched La Liga consistently. The only times we'd really see Real Madrid play was during Champions League games, or maybe if there was like a televised El Clasico game on was it ITV4, I think it is.
Yeah.
I want to know your opinions on that, because from my point of view, I think that Asensio, he's one of them players who everyone seems to say is a very good player, but every time that I have seen him play, I've just thought he is incredibly average.
It's one of the, you hear his name a lot, and I'll liken it to a player who also didn't play in the Prem but then got the move to the Prem, like Koulibaly in a sense. You hear, oh, he's so good in that league, sort of thing. And when he joins Chelsea, really doesn't do that well. Reputation kind of tarnished. And a similar thing could happen here at Aston Villa. I don't know how minutes-wise how important he'll be, because obviously you've got players like Morgan Rogers. Buendia's just left, so I think that's kind of like a like-for-like kind of swap. Their depth is quite good, Aston Villa. When I looked at their depth against us, I was like, wow,
Marlon as well.
Yeah, Marlon, new signing. That will help for cover for Ollie Watkins now. So Marlon will get used a bit more. Obviously, they progressed to the Champions League. I think they just got in the top 8. I can't remember. I think they either just got in the top 8 or just missed out, but that's going to be more games for them. So I don't know if he'll be one of those who'll slot straight into the squad. It's kind of like, I think, a Tielemans situation where he'll be signed. Tielemans was a free transfer, but I don't think he'll get pushed into the squad straight away. He'll be in and out. If he has some good performances, maybe he won't play as much as Aston Villa fans want, and then integrated into the squad more next season. But they do need that depth filler, even if it's just a like for like Buendia going. I don't actually know how Asensio will do, because I feel like he's been probably linked to every single team in the Premier League at this rate. Kind of like this is a flashback of a name, but like Draxler, just linked everywhere, and you're like, he's never going to join, is he? It's just linked. You hear it every summer and winter transfer window, but it seems like he actually is going to join, and I'll be interested to see how he does. I would say hopefully he doesn't do good against us, but we don't have to play them anymore, thank goodness. I don't know how he will do, to be honest. He brings that experience which some players in the Aston Villa squad don't have, that European experience playing for PSG, so that could be some much needed help.
Yeah, I'll just very quickly say some other stories. Stefanos Tsitsipas is leaning towards a move to Brighton. That was reported by Florian Plettenberg. Patrick Dorgu's medical at Manchester United could now take place this weekend. It was scheduled for during the week, however, it's had to be delayed. I believe also Tsitsipas is linked with Villa and Spurs as well. I'll ask you one final question before we wrap everything up. There was one player that for Arsenal, if you were the chairman, there was one player you could get on deadline day. Who would it be and why?
I mean, I'm gonna go with Sesko. I mean, unrealistic, yes, probably will happen. Obviously, definitely more likely to happen in the summer transfer window. But when Saka's back, those corners will be a lot better. And I know people have been like, corners, set pieces, but if we're good at them, why not utilise it? So he's a man mountain of height. I don't even know how tall he is, but he's massive. I've seen pictures.
6'4",
it's crazy. And I've seen pictures of him in the air, and I'm like, how do you even get that high? So I think Sesko would be my personal signing. And yeah, you could say, oh yeah, Isak, because a lot of our fans liken him to like an Henry kind of regen sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to be a bit more realistic. Even though I don't think Sesko will happen, I definitely don't think Isak will happen, even in the summer transfer window, because it's just too expensive. Like Newcastle want over 100 mil. So I think Sesko on the end of them, Declan Rice and Saka corners in behind. I think I'd be buzzing if we got Sesko, but I don't see it happening. But that's my player. What about you for your Spurs? Any player?
I think with Van der Ven just being so injury prone and the way that we play, where he will just always get injuries, I would.
Is Van der Ven back today? Is he? I think I've seen.
Yeah, he's in the squad today. I'm kind of like second. I'm kind of doubting myself with. It's between Piero Hincapié or Angelo Stiller.
Yeah, Stiller's he the midfielder?
Yes, Stuttgart.
Yeah, I've heard good things about him. To be fair, I think he could be kind of the I don't want to liken him to Gravenberch because obviously Gravenberch has done so well, but he could be that sort of like controlling presence in the midfield which you need. I think he'd be good.
Yeah, and I think as well he ranks in the top 1% in Europe for defensive duels won, I believe, and it's like makes 100 touches a game, which it shows that he's comfortable in possession. And then with Hincapié as well, I think it would be really good because it kind of hit two birds with one stone in the fact that if we wanted him to play left back, we could rest Udogie, who's also got a bit of a history with injuries. He had a big back hit. I think it was a back surgery in the summer. I want to say it was a back surgery, and then there's also tore his hamstring this season. So, if we wanted to play him left back, we could rest Udogie or like play him centre back and put Van der Ven to left back. Or similarly, if we wanted to rest Van der Ven, we could play him as the left centre back, put Udogie out wide. So it kind of fixes two positions at the same time.
Helps areas. Versatility.
A lot more rotation. But yeah, I'd say it's between Stiller and Hincapié for me.
Got yeah.
But I think that's everything. It's a bit of a shorter episode today because it's just the two of us. It's a bit harder to generate discussion rather than last week where we had 5 on the previous week we had 4. It's a lot more debate and discussion, right? Whereas there's just 2 of us here. It's kind of a bit of a make do job this week, really, wasn't it? A lot of people weren't available, but starting from next week, I believe we'll be doing. I think the plan was Mondays and
that was put in. Mondays maybe.
Yeah, Monday episodes, and then potentially Fridays or Sundays. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the plan going forward. But anyone that has watched, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe and follow the Twitter page as well, at the GCFC pod. Follow Marcus on Twitter and follow myself. Both of our socials are on the screen here. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you very much, Kyle. See you next week, guys.
Bye-bye.